endorsed by the directions of Manu. Manu supports that. However, according to the second provision, the father must share the property equally among his sons. This provision is also approved by Manu. मनु भी दोनों विषय में ही बात किया, तब हमको करना क्या चाहिए, यही है दिक्कत. However, he advises that when brothers equally divide their paternal property, sometimes it be given to the eldest as a token of respect. So the question that arises is, what would be the proper law regarding the inheritance? According to the theory, when both Smriti directions are equal in force or contradicts each other, the principle of option, I mean vikalpa, should be applied. Tulla vala virodhe vikalpa. If so, the provision of atmatushti, the individual conscience, consequently prevails. Though most of the post-Yagyavalkya Smriti writers do not accept Atmatushti, the fourth source, except Vyasa. व्यास के अतिरिक्त याज्ञवल्क्य के बिना और कोई आत्मतुष्टि के बारे में कुछ भी नहीं बताया. और मनु से पहले भी जो धर्मसूत्र था वहां पर भी आत्मतुष्टि के बारे में कोई सोर्स भी नहीं है. वो even the Mimamsakas like Kumarila admit in the Tantravartika that although Atmatushti is not a reliable source, it is a disputed issue among the Mimamsakas. So the Mimamsakas generally use the Vikalpa principle or either case only when all other means of reconciles appeared unavailable. जब वो किसी तरह रिकॉन्साइल नहीं कर सके तब भी वो विकल्पों को स्वीकार करते हैं. According to them, vikalpa has 8 faults. Ashtadosha. In short, the problem arises regarding how could the self-defending direction of Yagyavalkya be reconciled. Following the Mimamsaka, Vijñaneshwara, the author of Mitakshara commentary on the Yagyavalkya Smriti, reconciles the mentioned self-contradicting directions of Yagyavalkya with the help of Samanjasya principle, the principle of harmonious construction. He advises that if the father himself allots the self-acquired property and not by inheritance based on the law of primogeniture or the unequal allotments of property among his successor, then his unequal share be justified only in case of his self-acquired property. However, in the time of dividing the ancestral property, the father must follow the principle of equal distribution. Therefore, Vijñaneshwara restricts unequal distribution to one's self-acquired property while allowing the equal distribution for the ancestral property. I will discuss a famous judgment of Justice Markandeya Kadzu, one of the judges of the Supreme Court of India, who uses the Samanjasya principle of the Mimamsa to reconcile two apparently conflicting decisions of two division benches. The case has been branded as the Tribhuvan Misra versus District Inspector School of Azamgarh. It raises the issue regarding who will officiate as a principal of a high school or an intermediate college on the vacancy created by the death, retirement, removal, or resignation of the previous principal until the regular selection occurs by the Secondary Education Commission under the Uttar Pradesh Secondary Education Service Act 1982. The petitioner, Tribhuvan Misra, is admittedly the senior most lecturer in the institute. The position of the principal became vacant due to the resignation of the former principal, Devi Prasad Singh. The vacancy was notified by the commission. Meanwhile, Mr. Satyanarayan Tiwari, being the senior-most lecturer of the college, was appointed as an acting principal. However, Mr. Tiwari, senior-most lecturer, was appointed as an acting principal. However, Mr. Tiwari also retired and the rank of principal became vacant again. As the commission was yet to select the regular principal, the petitioner, Mr. Tribhuvan Mishra, assumed that in the normal course, he, being a senior most lecturer, would be appointed as a principal. The managing committee of the college, however, disregarded his seniority and appointed someone else in the vacant post as an ad hoc principal. The appointed individual helped to be junior to the petitioner, Mr. Mishra. Therefore, the petitioner claimed that he was wrongly denied the rank of the principal and it was done ad hoc basis. This is the case. There were two apparently conflicting division benches judgments on this point. The division bench presided over by Mr. Justice R.M. Sahani held that the senior-most teacher shall officiate as an ad hoc principal, while the division bench presided over by Mr. Justice V.N. Kher held that in such a situation, it is the discretion of the college managing committee to appoint anyone as an ad hoc principal. So, दो डिविजन बेंच दो तरह का जजमेंट दे दिया एक ही विषय में. Mr. Katsu, however, using the Samanjasya principle, it is written there in the case law. You can find the case law if you Google it. Using the Samanjasya principle, reconciled both the verdict of the two division benches and declared the final verdict. He argued that ordinarily, the senior-most teacher can officiate as an ad hoc principal and only in exceptional circumstances, such as if there are any serious charges against him, like murder, robbery, embezzlement, or any kind of physical disabilities for which he cannot properly perform the function of a principal. The managing committee, the management, could only request the next on the line in terms of seniority to succeed. It is noteworthy that in such a case, reasons and a brief opportunity of hearing should be given to the senior-most teacher. In this way, using the ancient Mimamsa rules of interpretation system, the Justice Katsu reconciles two apparently different division bench judgments without referring the case to a full bench. Based on his landmark judgment in the Indian Supreme Court, the case was settled in favor of the petitioner, Mr. Tribhuvan Mishra. However, both equal and unequal distribution, what we are saying about, both equal and unequal distribution of property have been recorded in Yagyavalkya and also in Manu. However, these conflicting directions need to be reconciled to have a consistent legal system to be operative. In addition, changes take place in the structure and nature of a society in which a proper distribution of property requires a clear and unambiguous law for the subject of the land. Ancient Indian history informs us that the law of primogeniture practiced for a long time was perhaps considered not adequately democratic due to the unequal inheritance of property. It is also possible that dynamics of a society opposed this practice for some time. This thought presupposes or includes a possibility that ancient seers could be wrong, challenging the core of the theory of the divine origin of those sacred laws, like the law of sharing property unequally. According to this theory, both of these laws have divine origins, consequently cannot be changed or altered, like creating a new set of rules by the legislature for the purpose of fitting a new group of people into the existing society. In this scenario, the Mimamsa system of interpretation encourages the legal experts of ancient India to reconcile different rules of maintaining a divine set of rules with being amenable to changing rules and practices of a dynamic society. Even the theory, as mentioned by Vijnaneshwara, help ancient judges announce a verdict in favor of an equal distribution of property. According to him, if the dharma, though recorded in the Smritis, is the cause of generating hatred among common people, then the former must not be performed as it leads to the situation compatible to asarga. Asargang lokavidvishtang dharmam api acharet natu. Referring to this provision, Yagyavalka, Vijnaneshwara has even gone as far as to recommend an equal division of property amongst one's inheritance. I mean, वहां पर था कि दो प्रोविजन, लेकिन इंटरप्रिटेशन के बाद वो प्रोविजन एक हो गया, सिर्फ इक्वल डिविजन में आ गया. In ancient time, the divine law is assumed to be something which is not subject to annulment or altering. However, the rules of interpretation helped legal expert annul or alter those laws to make them consistent with one another, in addition to responding to new demand of a changing society. In modern judiciary, those rules help modern judges provide something quick and convincing verdict. Sometimes, like the instance of the case Tribhuvan Mishra versus District Inspector School, Azamgarh, the rules of interpretation are able to make two apparently divergent judgments of the two division benches compatible with one another. Otherwise, according to the provision, if the two division benches provide conflicting judgment in a single case, it will be automatically regarded as a problematic case and be relegated for proper verdict to the full bench, and that is quite a difficult. This means it would likely to be both time-consuming and enhancing expenditure. However, the Mimamsa rules of interpretation help reconcile both the direction of two division bench together, and thus expedites the process of petitioner along with the court. Alternation of meaning or shifting the emphasis in application of any textual law or direction by interpretation is derived from the survival instinct of a long tradition of a changing society, and is very much typical of inherent characteristics of a living creatures. Through this method, ancient legal experts serves the purposes of society. This is usually accomplished by amendment or annulment in certain laws, where there is no such provision to change any existing smriti or shruti vachanam. In the conclusion, I would like to say that rules of interpretation on many cases are available are able to resolve contradictions in directions of the same text immediately, or various direction of different text written in different period in antiquity. It is able to do so by accommodations and adjustment of different parts of a single text or various texts to make them consistent. Sometimes, with the help of interpretation, the scope of applications of any law or direction becomes extended or restricted. There are plenty of examples. Theoretically, the entire system appears as a constant body of information, although actually it undergoes changes like a living organ. I know that this topic is really tough. Um, and most of the cases we talk that there is a famous line of P.V. Kane that Orientalists are not the lawyers and lawyers are not the Orientalists. So that's why when we amalgamate with modern law and the ancient law, then we come into this kind of confusion and ambiguity. And definitely the interpretation of law is a tough subject, tough matter, because by this interpretation, we can change the law. According to the divine origin of this Dharmashastric law, it cannot be changed. But for uh, uh, for compatible it with the modern changing society, it has to be changed. But how it could be? Interpretation is the only way how it could be changed. And the ready-made interpretation system made by the Mimamsakas, that ready-made interpretation system was so popular that every branches of Sanskrit literature takes it. In the Kabya also, Avihitanay Annita Avidhan, that is also the Mimamsa rules. Everything, all the interpretation system they used to clarify their statement actually. And for legal use, I know there's some law students out there, they know the how important this interpretation system is. However, my submission is finished and it is open for discussion. You can ask if you have anything to say. Thank you very much. सम्यक् ज्ञात सर्गे लोके च कामधुग्भवति। अहं तु प्राप्त महाभाष्ये सुप्रयुक्त काव्यादर्शे अपि अस्ति। काव्यादर्शे अपि अस्ति। It is written there in the judgment. There is vidhi or your reconciliation asti tatra vidhi arthavadasya. No. Vidhi. Are you compatible with Bengali also? বিধির লাইন নয়, বিধি এবং অর্থবাদকে রিকনসাইল করবার, একবাক্য করবার যে সিস্টেম, সেই সিস্টেমটা এখানে নিয়েছে এবং ওখানে উল্লেখ করা আছে জাজমেন্টে। জাজমেন্ট, if you Google it, you can find the judgment. It is written there how to reconcile a vidhi with arthavada. They use that technique. It is called samanjasya. Vyavasthita vikalpa. That is also a kind of samanjasya. Yes, please. No, actually, क्योंकि in the old law, every law was duty oriented, and now all the law is right oriented. Equality is there. And after the codification, I will tell in my next session, that is the death of a uh, personal law, an ancient law after the codification. Though there are so many things there in our ancient law, so many complicated cases are there recorded in our ancient law, but the sadness is after the codification, we have to uh, we have to see what the modern law, codified law thinking, modern law will prevail. But if any case find that in the modern law, what is we are not coming to a conclusion, then we have to search the divine text. I mean, the Smriti text, like the case what our previous Anup Babu says that from the Oxford, they want to know that is there any provision for cremation written in the Veda or not, because there were no law written there. Then we have to find it. But after codification, you know, the death of personal law. Your personal law है, actually personal law है, लेकिन स्मृति लॉ जो था वो तो कोडिफाइड हो गया, वो तो कास्ट ओरिएंटेड लॉ था, इक्वलिटी क्लॉज आ गया, है ना? जहां पर मॉडर्न लॉ कुछ नहीं बता सकते, लैकुना हम बताते हैं, लैकुना है, वहां पर हमको देखना पड़ेगा कि एंशियंट लॉ में क्या होगा। वो तो जजमेंट में ही मिलेगा। ऐसा कुछ केस आएगा जिसमें ऐसा डिस्प्यूट आएगा जिसमें मॉडर्न कोडिफाइड लॉ कुछ बता नहीं पा रहे हैं, तब हमको देखना पड़ेगा कि एंशियंट लॉ में क्या है। यस, यस, डेफिनेटली। समटाइम्स we need to codify more. Processing need to be open again. Unified civil code, you know, they are talking about unified civil code also. In our constitution, there is a provision. But there are so many things about marriage law, about succession, adoption law. We have codified, but there are left so many plenty of things there, so many complicated things, which is not written. We can find it as a judgment law. जजमेंट है उसमें, जजमेंट लॉ के बेस में हम वो बताते हैं। लेकिन कोडिफिकेशन हो जाने के बाद तो बहुत सारे चीज, मतलब पुराना स्मृति तो क्या बताए, उसका चर्चा खत्म हो गया कोडिफिकेशन के बाद। उससे पहले होता था प्रीवी काउंसिल जजमेंट में, वो स्मृति का व्यवस्था होते थे, व्यवस्था देते थे पंडित लोग। जॉर्ज पंडित कह के एक पोस्ट होता था ब्रिटिश के समय, वो एबोलिशन हो गया जब कोडिफिकेशन हिंदू कोड बिल, वो जो आया ना, वो कोड ऑफ हिंदू लॉ, उसके बाद वो एबोलिशन हो गया वो पोस्ट। तो इसी तरह कोडिफिकेशन प्रोसेस चलता रहा। लेकिन अभी जो सिचुएशन है आफ्टर 1955-56, when the Hindu code bill, Hindu codification was it's come, most of the previous dharmashastric text became obsolete almost. But there are so many things there which is not codified, so many variations, local variations. Anything else? I think I am in my time. Thank you.
So we have another session from Seth. So I think we can start this session also in this time. We we take 5 minutes break. Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. It was a dynamic session, I think. He has speak about the interpretation law, and he has quoted case laws also to explain his topic. He has quoted the Kajus interpretation about various cases which has been held in previous time. So I think it was fruitful to you. And after now I am taking a 5 minutes break. After that, we will start the another session. Okay, thank you all. आप सभी लोग आपके आसन में बैठ जाएं। हम जल्दी ही नेक्स्ट सेशन प्रारंभ करेंगे। So all the participants are requested to have their own seats. We'll start the next session. It will be very short session, 20 minutes to 25 minutes the session will continue. So the rest part of Dr. Bandyopadhyay, he will speak now about the Succession Act in the view of Dharma Shastra. You have heard a lot of things about the Succession Act. Also, Dr. Anup sir has discussed about the various rules of Hindu Succession Act and where we have to depend on Dharma Shastra to interpret the various rules of Hindu Succession Act. Now, we'll hear from Dr. Bandyopadhyay, who will also represent the view of Dharma Shastra on Hindu Succession Act. So, without delaying, I will request Dr. Bandyopadhyay to continue his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't worry, I am not going to read the entire paper as the previous session was very complicated. But in this session, I shall try to discuss about Succession Act, but mostly I concentrate on the Ayabhaga school and its socio-political aspect also. So before we dive into the details of succession, in the from two it will start. It will be better you read my paper. It will be good for understanding. Before we dive into the details of succession, it's important to understand the Mitakshara and Dayabhaga system of Hindu law. As we know, the codified Hindu law provides a uniform set of laws for all Hindus, leaving no room for different schools of thought in area covered by the code. However, the unified areas, different schools of Hindu law emerged during the era of commentaries and digest. These schools of thoughts arose because commentators interpret same thing. Commentators interpret ancient text differently, leading to conflicting doctrines. That's why two schools come, because they interpret the text different way. In the same story, that the term monosyllabic word da, from there, Devata, Asur, and Manav, they Dana, Datta, Dayadham, they interpret three different ways. There is the same case. The two main schools are the Mitakshara school and the Dayabhaga school, also named as Bengal school. The Mitakshara school has sub-schools such as Benares school, Mithila school, Maharashtra school, or Bombay school, and Dravida and Madras school. Then I am going to skip from the next page because we know about Mitakshara, Vijganeshwar, and we know about Dayabhaga writer Yamudmahana. The Mitakshara was accepted. Please try to understand my what I am telling now in this paragraph, because Mitakshara was accepted all over India. We know that. While Dayabhaga was mainly in Bengal and Assam. But here is the new information. In 2001, Professor Ludo Roscher and Roshan Roscher noted that throughout his writing, Vijganeshwara debates with one or more opponents who remain unnamed. वहां पर नाम नहीं है, उनका ओपोनेंट का नाम नहीं है, विज्ञानेश्वर का ओपोनेंट का कोई नाम नहीं है. J. Duncan M. Derrett has demonstrated that, contrary to common belief in later Sanskrit commentaries and colonial scholarly literature, Vijñaneshwara's adversary was not Jimudvahana, the author of Dayabhaga Digest. मतलब कॉलोनियल टाइम के समय यो लोग बताते रहते हैं ना, ये विज्ञानेश्वर का ऑपोजिशन पूर्व पक्ष है द्वायभाग, ये सच नहीं है. Derrett in 1952 highlighted that the two authors lived in different regions of the Indian subcontinents and were likely unaware each other's work. वो एक दूसरे के बारे में जानते भी नहीं, डिस्पाइट बीइंग कॉन्टेम्पररीज. हो सकता है वो कॉन्टेम्पररी, लेकिन वो एक दूसरे के बारे में जानते नहीं. The idea of Dayabhaga school of Hindu law for Bengal and the Mitakshara school of Hindu law for the rest of India emerged later. ये कॉन्सेप्ट बाद में आया. पहले कोई धर्मशास्त्र के टेक्स्ट में वो लिखा नहीं है कि दायभाग का सिस्टम बंगाल के लिए और बाकी का सिस्टम, बाकी मिताक्षरा बाकी इंडिया के लिए है. ये बाद में आया. ड्यूरिंग द कॉलोनियल पीरियड, इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय H.T. Colebrook's writing, this distinction implies that in Bengal, joint family property is inherited by succession to a deceased or incapacitated prior owner, while in the rest of India, every male member of a family becomes a joint owner of the family property by birth. मतलब एक जगह जन्म सत्यवाद और दूसरी जगह उपरम सत्यवाद. इन दोनों को लेके जो बंगाल स्कूल और बाकी इंडियन स्कूल आ गया, वो बाद में आया. आई एम स्किपिंग ऑल दोस थिंग. प्लीज कम टू द पेज नंबर 7. Okay. Diving into the Sanskrit text, contrasting Mitakshara and Dayabhaga law of inheritance. Before we dive into the types of property like joint family, co-personary, what our previous speaker talking about, that co-personary is need to be necessary very much. Co-personary property and separate self-acquired property. I am not going to tell all those things, don't worry. Let's turn about ancient Sanskrit text. These texts hold insight into the difference between Mitakshara and Dayabhaga laws. Here I am trying to tell you what is the difference between Dayabhaga, not only Uparama Satyavada and Janma Satyavada, but what is the difference between that? So understanding differences of joint family property of succession, Jimudvahana versus Dayabhaga. Let's explore. Jimudvahana and Vijñaneshwara, despite commenting on the same body of Smriti literature, arrived in contrasting conclusion. The crux of their differences lies in two key aspects. Firstly, the Mitakshara perspective presented by Vijñaneshwara asserts that any member, particularly male, of a joint family becomes a co-owner of the estate by birth. In contrast, Jimudvahana argues that no joint family member holds proprietary rights until the prior owner passed away or becomes incapacitated. Secondly, the schools establish different orders of succession, primarily based on their interpretation in the term of Pinda. In the term of Pinda in ancient text on Dharma. While these interpretations differ, they do not fundamentally alter the concept of succession. In this section, we will delve into these differences to understand how they shape the concept of joint family property and succession in Hindu law. The chapter of inheritance in the Mitakshara commentary, with an extensive theoretical exploration. मिताक्षरा का जो दायभाग चैप्टर वो शुरू होता है ना दाय के ऊपर एक बड़ा theoretical discussion के साथ, following the clarification of the term daya and bhaga, Vijñaneshwara delves into discussion on the concept of ownership. What is shatta? The sources of ownership are detailed in the Gautama's Dharma Shastra. That is Swami, Riktha, Kraya Sangribhaga, Parigrahadigameshu. A person becomes the owner by inheritance, purchase, partition, or discovery. In addition, a Brahman becomes the owner of what he receives, a Kshatriya of what he conquers, a Vaishya and Shudra of what he earns. The debate centers on whether ownership is solely a concept outlined in the scriptures, Shastrik, as detailed in Gautama's text, or if it extended to worldly, I mean Laukika, practices allowing for additional non-scriptural ways of acquiring property. The Mitakshara presents arguments supporting the former. According to Mitakshara, it is Laukika, which are ultimately dismissed in favor of the latter perspective. Ownership and its acquisition are not confined to the methods outlined in the Gautama's text. That is the decision of Mitakshara. This leads to a related discussion during the partition of inheritance, Vibhaga. Does ownership emerge at the time of partition, or are the survivor dividing something in which their ownership had been previously established? Vijñaneshwara initially presents arguments supporting the former stance, only to reject them in favor of the latter. He concludes that participants in the partition gain their property right by birth. Unlike Mitakshara, the Dayabhaga law does not start with a long discussion. Jimudbahana says right away from the beginning, Jimudbahana says that for a son or anyone else to own joint property, their father or previous owner must be dead or unable to manage the property. Nanu Arjayatri Vyapara, sorry, it is written Tacha Pitri Maranopajata Swatnamuchyate. From the very beginning, he says that. Only briefly, it is written there, does he refer to and reject the idea that coming into the world, Janmana eva sattam, coming into the world is a sufficient condition for a person to acquire a right of ownership. This different from Mitakshara, which says you are automatically a joint property owner from birth, a key part of the joint family system. In Dayabhaga, the father is seen as the only owner who can do what he wants with the property. Also, Dayabhaga does not let the son divide the property while the father is alive, a unique feature of inheritance law in Bengal even today. In the two schools of thought, the interpretation of the term pinda lead to a significant difference. Both Vijñaneshwara and Jimudbahana refers to the Manu 9187. It is written there, Anantara Sapindadyas Tasya Tasyata Dhanang Bhavet, which states that inheritance should go to the nearest Sapinda, meaning the person who shares the most pindas with the deceased. However, they interpreted the term pinda in different way. Vijnaneshwara sees pinda as a part of body, leading to the idea that sapinda relation is based on sharing particles of the same body. Eka Sharira Avayava Annaya. This concept forms the basis of inheritance and the order of succession in the Mitakshara. On the other hand, Jimudvahana disagrees with this view. He argues that since the verse preceding Manu 9:187 उससे पहले वाला जो श्लोक है mentions that the offering pindas, the sapinda relationship must be related to the pindas. For Jimudvahana, a pinda is a rice ball offered to the deceased in the funeral rites, I mean Shraddha. And Shapinda are those individuals connected with these rice balls offered at the Shraddha ceremony. Here is the two difference. After the mourning period, after Ashauchante ke baad, a series of rituals called Shraddhas are performed for the deceased. The first one, known as Ekadvishta, is performed for the deceased alone. Ekadvishta, Ekam Uddishta. This is followed by 15 more ceremonies, with the last one ideally done on the first anniversary of the death. The 16th ceremony, called Shapindana or Shapindikarana, is crucial as it formally includes the deceased among the ancestors. After this, the deceased is no longer honored individually, but is remembered along with the ancestors during the Parvana Shraddhas. During the Parvana Shraddhas, the performer offers complete pindas to the 3 generations of male ancestors on both father's and mother's side. Simultaneously, the performer will eventually be honored with pindas by 3 generations of male descendants. This makes each person a sapinda with 6 other generations. Actually, we need to draw some sketch with this generation. Additionally, a Parvana Shraddhas offering of scraps of pindas called pindalepas are made to ancestor beyond the great-grandfather, forming a group of relatives known as sakulya. Water used for rinsing hands after handling the pindas is offered to 7 generations above the sakulyas and receives from 7 generations below, creating a connection called samanodaka, those who have water in common. In understanding inheritance, this crucial to define who can inherit when there are no close relationships alive. This highlights the importance of identifying which relatives are considered sapinda. Jimudvahana and the Bengal School of Law focus on how those offering pindas are beneficial, upakaraka, to the deceased, while direct descendants are most beneficial. Others, like daughter's son, who offer pindas indirectly, are also considered beneficial. Additionally, those who offer pindas to deceased person as they would have done if alive are also counted as sapindas according to Jimudvahana. Justice Dwarakanath Mittar highlighted that Dayabhaga's inheritance theory is based on spiritual benefit, and this principles guides all related questions. He argued for including relatives like a paternal uncle's daughter's son among the Shapindas, even if no explicit mentions in the Dayabhaga based on spiritual benefit. Although some argue that Jimudvahana aimed to reform certain aspect of Mitakshara law, his view on inheritance are still seen as closely tied to the idea of survivor benefiting the deceased. This connection emphasizes the importance of Shraddha and the offering of Pinda. The Dayabhaga prioritizes religious efficiency in the determining the order of succession, rejecting the preferences of agnates over cognates and organizing cognates based on its own principles. The Jimudbahana's interpretation, which gave rise to Bengal school of law, differs from Mitakshara, and this variance has intrigued scholars. One prevailing idea is that such difference stem from local customs and traditions. Scholars like Settler suggest that legal texts need to align with local practices to be accepted. This notion leads to the belief that understanding the history of customs of a region can explain the legal differences observed. Actually, in Bengal, यहाँ पर हुआ क्या है? वो it is written there that S.C. Mittar, in the second paragraph, it is written that suggested for the Dayabhaga especially, I am skipping actually, that's why. यहाँ पर वो 5 ब्राह्मण और 5 कायस्थ लेके आया था कनौज से, मालूम है ना? तो यहाँ का जो कुलीन प्रथा बन गया, उससे ज्यादा के ज्यादा जो कन्या वो अपने पिता के घर में ही रहते थे, उनके पिता के घर में ही रहते थे। इसीलिए आप देखना, जैसा कि अन्नप्राशन पर पहला अन्न कौन खिलाता है? मामा खिलाते हैं, है ना? लेकिन बाकी जगह में आप अगर जाओगे तो वहां पर देखना पिता ही खिलाते हैं, क्योंकि वहां का जो यज्ञ का जो पार्ट होता है ना, उसमें पिता ही सबसे पहले अन्न देता है। तो इसीलिए जैसा कि मामा के घर में वो रहते हैं और वहां पर ही वो बड़े होते हैं, और पितामह की गुजरने के बाद वो पितामह को पिंडो देते हैं। इसीलिए पितामह का संपत्ति, पितामह का मामा का संपत्ति उनको मिलते हैं। यही है बंगाल का सिस्टम, पिंडदाता हरतरिक्तम। ये है डिफरेंस। इसमें और भी बहुत सारे चीज है, लेकिन ये पिंड पिंड कैसे, कौन सकुल्ल है, कौन सपिंड है, उसके हिसाब से ही बंगाल में इनहेरिटेंस चला। क्योंकि अगर मिताक्षरा सिस्टम माना जाए तो जॉइंट फैमिली में मैरिड वुमेन कैन नॉट बी इंक्लूडेड। तो इसीलिए यहां पर जैसा कि daughter's son also lived in the joint family in Bengal, and they served pindas to their maternal grandfather. So according to this law, Pindodata Haratriktam, they include this way of interpretation so that they can devolve their property to their daughter's son. Hope I can clarify that. Because it is really a complicated issue. It will take almost 7 days to understand this kind of thing. Actually, this is a big paper. I know it is difficult to understand. So, is there any question? I don't know is the time allows or not. Thank you, I think.
Thank you, sir. I think it was shortest of time, because the Sapindo relation is it is a big part of Dharma Shastra. We need 7 days to understand the Sapindo relation, how it's revolved, or at the end point of Shapindo relation and when the Samanodok relation starts. So these things take much time, I think. So yes, sir. So yet you have completed it within a 25 minutes. I am thankful to you and I express my heartfelt gratitude to you for your presentation. Thank you. Now we will go for lunch. After lunch, we will meet in, again at 2:30 p.m. धन्यवाद.